Welcome everybody to today's webinar on agentic data engineering on AWS, modernizing 250 Glue pipelines in 6 weeks. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Whether you're dealing with pipeline maintenance challenges or looking to modernize your data operations, or really curious about how AI can help accelerate some of those data engineering workflows, you are in the right place. My name is Jenny Hearn. I'm Chief of Staff here at Ascend.io, and I'll be your host today, but I'm more excited to be joined by Dustin Cassady. Dustin is the Managing Director of Data Engineering and Analytics at the StudioC. In his current role, Dustin manages some really complex data integration challenges at scale to provide churches with insights and tools that they need to better serve their communities. And in the past 6 weeks, what Dustin has accomplished is really nothing short of incredible. He's migrated 250 pipelines, completely modernized his data infrastructure, and has been able to deliver new data products faster than ever before. And today he's going to share how he did it. So I'm really excited. Please welcome Dustin to the session. How are you doing, Dustin?
I'm doing good, Jenny. How are you doing?
I'm great. I've loved working with your team. Every time we talk, I just get more excited about the things that you're doing, the things that you're building. And I think everyone on the call is going to be really excited to hear um, about what you're building, how you accomplished it. Before we get into the fun technical side of what you've built, could you give us a little bit of a background on StudioC and your team, just so we
Yeah.
have more of a sense of where you're coming from and the world that you're building as you've kind of modernized your data stack?
Yeah, absolutely. So here at StudioC, we are what's called a church member engagement platform. And so our core product, we really have two core products. One of those products is the member engagement platform. And what it allows our churches to do is to segment and communicate on a personalized level with their members. And so they can create those communications through mobile app messaging, through email, through SMS. And so that's one of our core products. And then we have a new product that we just launched this year, which is called Church IQ, which is our full BI analytics platform for our churches, which allows us to show churches and allow churches to visualize their data in ways that they've never known and never seen before. And so with that, from a team standpoint, we're very lean. We are a startup as startup comes, and we're very lean. And so we have five engineers, and we have four on the application side, and then we have really just myself on the data engineering side. And so we're growing, but we are still a very lean team. Thinking about like goals and like what were we setting out to do when we went after looking at Ascend and other data engineering platforms. And so for us, some of the biggest things were to decrease the time it took us to manage our data engineering infrastructure. I wanted to spend more time in code and less time in infrastructure.
Yeah.
I wanted to spend more time, our team to spend more time in SQL and really less time in Terraform, which is where we have been living for a while now. And then the other is that we had a goal to be able to bring new products to market faster, and Ascend has really allowed us to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I know a big part of what you do is, it's you care so deeply about the customers that you're supporting, these churches that you're supporting, and really, I think you said to me, I I can solve more problems. I just don't have the capacity and the resources to be able to build out those analytic models for them to
Yeah.
be able to do that. So let's also talk about like what your previous architecture looked like and what some of the challenges your team was experiencing as you were building this out. I did see someone raise their hand in the chat. Go ahead and toss some questions in Q&A. If we have time at the end, I'm sure we'd absolutely love to answer some of those questions at the end of the chat, at the end of the call as well. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about your previous architecture.
Yeah, so for the last several years, had been building and what I would say the typical AWS Glue data pipelines. Everything from from using crawlers and catalogs and step functions to orchestrate all of our data pipelines. And that was all managed through Terraform. And that really kind of got us going. It got us doing what we needed to do at the time. We then took when we took on Church IQ and we started building out Church IQ, we also then began to build out some of our data sets, our analytical data sets out into QuickSight and using their Spice data sets to manage some of that. Well, now we've got two separate systems. We now have some business logic in Spice, and we have some business logic in Glue, and we're copy and pasting stuff from one to the other because once you build something out in Spice, it's kind of sits there, and we can't reuse it anywhere. And the other thing is that we had because of the cost at the time to run all of our pipelines, we were only running them about twice a week in order to try and keep them still manageable. One of the great things with Ascend is that we've been able to easily move that to daily and not increase our costs in terms of data engineering. The other thing that's been awesome is that we have been able to take some of these smaller data integrations and data ingestion pipelines that we were running as that we were running as monolithic .NET apps that we were then running and scheduling on a Windows server. We were able to move those actually fully to Ascend as an Ascend pipeline and schedule through automations. And so I would say very typical AWS pipeline through Glue and all of that, pushing to Redshift, which is our primary data warehouse.
Yeah, I think that's a really common pattern that we see across our customers who come to Ascend is, you have these pipelines that you've been building for many years. I think we talked yesterday, you said it was about 2 years that you'd been working on kind of these Glue pipelines. For some customers, they've been working on those pipelines for a real long time. They have all of this legacy code. And then that whole idea of like dry, don't repeat yourself becomes kind of impossible in that system. And so anytime that you need to reuse all of that code, it's copy and paste. The maintenance of that becomes kind of really overwhelming. And I think I'd love to hear kind of the breaking point that you came to when you were like, we just can't keep doing this anymore, because maybe that'll resonate with some folks who are on the call
Yeah.
today.
I mean, probably the breaking point was when we got to the point of, rock, paper, scissoring to see who had to crack open Terraform. I mean, and nothing against Terraform, but like we're small, we're lean, we don't have those deep Terraform skills. And so, we would get to a point where I'm pushing off upgrades and updates to our pipeline just because I don't want to have to get my environment rebuilt to test the updates to Terraform and get them deployed, through the process. The other thing was that those same kind of, I would say, like drains of potentially having to push stuff out through Terraform got us to the point where we were super excited about solving problems for our churches, and then we would dread having to not solve the problem, but actually deploy the problem through our pipelines. And so that really got to be the point where, man, I'm not good at Terraform, and no one on our team really is. So what can we do to eliminate that as a kind of a drain, a cup drainer for our team, and can we get a platform that allows our team to live in their space of joy, which is if we can live in SQL, that's where we enjoy it. It's not everyone, but we do, and so we enjoy being in SQL, and so Ascend allows us to live in SQL and solve problems through SQL and be able to deploy that out through to all of our churches.
Yeah, and I think too, you had those 250 churches, you were copying and pasting code, and I imagine you need to make a change to a pipeline somewhere. What was that process like for your team?
Yeah, I mean, to make say the smallest change, say I wanted to add a column to a data set that is produced only in Redshift, doesn't exist in our downstream pipelines, but it's populated through data through that our downstream pipelines. I mean, that would take weeks to test it, which was the easy part, to build it and test it, but then to actually push it through all of our environments and all of the processes. It would just take forever. That was kind of why it was draining. The other thing that was difficult is that because our pipelines maybe were new, they were kind of the original versions, they were very monolithic. So we had to run them end to end. And so there weren't a lot of places where we could inject into the middle of the pipeline and say, hey, just run this product, just run this feature, and then push it downstream. So we ended up having to rerun, and the cost of the rerun, I mean, was very high. And so that's another thing that I love about what we've built within the Ascend platform, is that at any point in the pipeline we can inject ourselves and say, okay, we just want to run, this node and everything downstream and vice versa. And that's a huge feature that honestly I didn't necessarily expect, but love that we have, and now is a really, for us, is a huge feature.
That's awesome. So I think a lot of what I hear is like we had all this maintainability issues, we had all these infrastructure management challenges, data freshness, and having that not be so cost prohibitive, even to test some of those things,
Yeah.
was a really big challenge. How did you go about? I think that that probably resonates with many people on this call who are experiencing some of those challenges. And then the question that they probably have is like, how'd you go about looking for a solution? Like, what what was your process? How did you find Ascend? Where what was that like
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, and I think therein lies, like, the first question really is like, we had to accept that this was going to take time to find a solution and to find the right vendor, and really own the fact that this isn't going to be something that's done overnight. And if we're going to do this right, we're going to have to invest time into this. And so what we did is we crafted a proof of concept that had 4 use cases within our current data engineering platform, and we then searched the Google sphere for everyone and anyone that does data engineering platform solutions. And so we ended up selecting 5 different vendors, Ascend being one of those 5, and we took them through the proof of concept for 4 weeks with each of them, and we essentially benchmarked each vendor on each of the use cases, and then whichever vendor essentially scored the best in our minds for each of the use cases as a whole, we decided that would be the one that we would select. And so um, that took a lot of time. I mean, that was my focus for literally about a month, in terms of physically getting accounts with each 5, building our solution on top of all 5 vendors, and then really kind of making that call at the end that said, Ascend was the best solution for us, and the best partnership.
I think there's so much wisdom in that approach too, of the methodical way you approached it of I'm gonna choose the 5 that seem most aligned with my current pain points that I have. I'm going to have really clear benchmarks for each of these things. I'm going to rank them all on what they provide and what they don't, where they tick boxes and where they don't. I think that's we hope that everyone takes that approach, but I think a lot of people go with the like I'm just going to try to cobble together more tools because there are so many tools in the ecosystem. And so I think, yeah, coming to a solution where you're like, I need one unified place where I can do all of this and do it well instead of trying to integrate a bunch of different tools that can do it.
Yeah.
Um, I think makes a lot of sense for you. So let's talk a little bit about Ascend. Can you share a little bit about yeah, how you've been using it and what stood out to you as you came to Ascend. Why'd you go with Ascend over those other four vendors that you looked at?
Yeah, so even like if Jenny, if you think back to how I even found you guys, like one of our use cases was API ingestion
Yeah.
transformation to Redshift essentially, and like that was how I found you guys. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to do API ingestion well, maybe the other things, I hope. And then when we finally talked, it was like, holy cow, like that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, the way we're using Ascend today is from an ingestion standpoint, we are reading a Microsoft SQL Server, multiple Microsoft SQL servers, Postgres. We are reading data in from a REST API, and then we're also reading and writing into Redshift, which is where everything lands for us. Uh, from a transformation standpoint, what I absolutely love is that now we are centralized and we are reusable of all of our business logic. Now we have components, we have true data components, not necessarily code, but also code, but components that actually define, you know, what in our platform, what a giver is, and what a declining giver is. We're starting to now have centralized location of the definitions of our data, which is just amazing, absolutely been amazing. Because before, if we change the definition of some of our data objects, I'm cutting and pasting and going back and finding all the things that we were cutting and pasting. So now you've got to come to the one place and grab your data, which has been awesome. From an orchestration standpoint, we were scheduling our jobs on a Windows server, and now we're scheduling all those jobs and pipelines through automations, and triggering those pipelines to run. Um, I talked about this before, but also the ability to go into any part of our pipeline and run, run a certain part, no matter where that's at in the pipeline. That's a huge thing that we're using right now. And then from an observability standpoint, being able to report out performance and errors. Um, this is just a huge win that I didn't expect, is being able to see now in the Ascend platform every single component. And we've got anywhere from, I don't know, 60 to 70 different components on any given pipeline, that we can see which component, how long each component runs, and it allows us to understand which component might need to be tuned, opposed from having to dig in and troubleshoot that entire pipeline. I mean, that's just been amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, I think, watching you and our team collaborate on like, hey, I'm seeing this error and all the logs are there. You click a button and AI can decipher what's going on there. It's really quite nice. But let's talk a little bit about your specific use case and your specific flow that you were building out, because I think that'll be really exciting for people to kind of get their heads around like what this looks like in practice. So can you tell us a little bit about that Church IQ flow and how you went about building that in Ascend?
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, Church IQ is our analytics platform, and it is made up of data today from Microsoft SQL and Postgres. And so we're reading data in from our Microsoft SQL server, which is data that is produced by members engaging with our platform. And then the Postgres database, which is data that is populated through any number of 12 to 13 different integrations that we have built with church management systems and payment platforms and analytic platforms, that then is fed to that Postgres server, or that Postgres database. And then we then take all that data for each church, and then we transform it into analytical data sets that can then be rendered through our BI tool, which is AWS QuickSight. We also take all of that data across all those different Postgres and Microsoft SQL databases, and then we union it all together, and then we push it into a multi-tenant database on a Redshift for multi-tenant analysis and visualization. That's also built on top of AWS. So that is our Church IQ platform today. one of the things that we've been able to do, and we may get to this in a little bit, but that we've been able to add as even part of this project is we've been able to build some new products that we'll talk about here in a little bit and be able to push data back into that single tenant data warehouse or that single tenant Postgres database also. And this is all through Ascend, which has just been awesome.
Yeah, so you have that single tenant Postgres going to multi-tenant with all of the customer data, and then you're reuniting that into a single tenant kind of
Yep.
workflow.
Yep.
And I think what that looks like kind of in practice. So step 1 and 2 here, reading that customer data, transforming that customer data. You have these templates that look very simple from right here, just 4 components. And then when you spread those out, it's quite complex what you're really working with. You have the ingestion in blue that we talked about before, and then those transformations in teal. And this is kind of those first 2 steps of the pipeline where you're ingesting that data and transforming it. Can you tell us a little bit more about like these reusable templates and how you've been using them?
Yeah, so this has been great. So, basically we've written these templates in one section within Ascend, and essentially we've got a template per what I'll say is a product. And so each section you see here on the screen, that elongated section, that's I would say like our primary what we call archive product. And then the smaller ones are what we call Church IQ and Donor Health. And so we're able to continue to just build new products and new features within the core data product just by rolling out these templates. And we write the one template, and then we've built a configuration layer that Ascend reads that then deploys these templates out to all of our flows based on the products of ours that each customer has, each church has, that then builds the pipeline dynamically for them, which has been just awesome.
Yeah, so you essentially have like one file that lists all of your customers and what products that they have. And then from that file, Ascend is dynamically generating these pipelines, these flows based on what products each of those customers is subscribed to.
Yep.
Then, you only have that template only lives one place. So when you need to make a
You
change,
make one
like
change.
add a column or whatever you need to do, you change it once, and every customer that is subscribed to that product will have that update once
Yeah,
they
and then on top of that, we make the one change and we merge that change and Ascend deploys it across all of our flows that it needs to on all of our customers. So my team doesn't have to do the infrastructure management, which is awesome.
That is awesome. So we got to steps 1 and 2, and this took you about how long to build these first couple steps in Ascend?
I mean, the reality is probably about, I'd say 2.5, 3 weeks, probably to get this all built in Ascend. And there's even, on screen here, some new features that don't exist anywhere in our platform except in Ascend that we were able to add in that 4-week time frame, which has been awesome.
That's amazing. And that's not all, because you also have step 3 and 4, which is then taking that transform data from the different customers, unioning it together, and then writing it out to Redshift. This is a screenshot of kind of a smaller version of this. In reality, you have 250 churches. This DAG is, I think, something like 9,000 components or something like that. It's quite intense. But can you tell us a little bit about what is happening in this graph and how it supports your customers?
Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're taking each of our churches and we're bringing them all together into a multi-tenant data warehouse that we can then run internal analytics on, and then we can also expose those analytics to our customers through AWS QuickSight. So this process of being able to take these these Postgres databases and move them into a multi-tenant was honestly the easiest process, way easier than the first time we wrote this through our normal and our older Glue stack. So the amount of time that we spent originally on the original platform was months, and we were able to replicate that in Ascend in literally weeks.
Yeah, and this is just a simple code sample from your environment where this is all very parameterized, and so
Yep.
the template just becomes really easy and straightforward. It's basically creating flows from each of these different tables dynamically. So
Yep.
again, you don't have to do a bunch of hard-coded maintenance.
Yeah.
It's all there for you. Super cool. So let's talk about AI because I think that's something that everyone's excited about. How do we leverage AI in the data space, not just for our customers or externally, but how do we as users of AI leverage AI? And so I'd love to hear about some of the ways that you leveraged AI as you were modernizing these pipelines. Any cool stories that you can share about how AI helped play a role?
Yeah, I mean, right from the start, being able to use the auto feature, the AI feature in Ascend to help us just understand the platform as a whole. So like, I mean, documentation on steroids. Like the documentation's there, and there would be times where I would read through that, but like AI would get, auto would get us there a lot quicker. It would get me there a lot quicker. The other thing from a troubleshooting standpoint, being able to within the Ascend UI on an error page, immediately just send that through into auto and have it analyze, do the analysis of that error with literally one click. I'm not cutting and pasting. I'm staying in the same tool. It would also inject ideas, and I could accept those or reject those ideas in terms of code changes and flow changes. That simply was amazing. Also, love the ability to ask it to analyze our Git log. Whenever I would have things that I knew were working and I broke them, literally having it, search our Git log and say, okay, this worked. I know it worked. What did I do to break it? And, more times than not, it would help me, figure out what I changed to then go back and fix that. It
Yeah.
also helped me with some code optimization where I would write something and it wasn't running as fast or as good as I would want it to, and just asking, hey, where could I improve, this logic, on this application. And then the last piece I think is I was looking at building some new integrations and some newer simple integrations, and one of those integrations was um, integration with another church management platform. And it was just a simple attendance integration, and it stubbed out the initial code for me, and then I could take it from there and then push it the rest of the way in the garage. And so yeah, it was super super helpful.
Those are some really fun use cases, I think, for AI. I think one of the cool things about Ascend and our ability to integrate and weave AI into the platform is like you said, we have all this metadata in the system from all of that activity, from code changes to run history, even profiles of the data itself, right? And so as developers, that's really helpful data to have access to, but also for AI, when AI has access to that metadata, it just can really supercharge our workflows, right? Like obviously it's not replacing us, it's just giving us the ability to be able to move faster, to not go through the grunt work of like digging through logs or um, yeah, just starting from scratch for code.
Yeah,
And I think like with an AI tool like Ascend, it's like even a step beyond Cursor because Cursor doesn't have access to like your underlying data infrastructure or doesn't have access to see all those things in the background to help monitor those things. So yeah, really cool. I think I'm excited to see like what you continue to do with AI, what other users continue to do with AI, because I think there really isn't a limit to what we can sort of ask of it. Like I think we can continue to evolve and grow together towards what are some really great use cases for bringing AI into our workflows that help us just move faster. Because that was your whole goal to start with, is how can I just
yeah,
move faster? So
absolutely.
talking about that, like what else have you built in the last 6 weeks? Your goal originally was just to do that one church IQ project, but you did not stop there.
No, we didn't. We didn't. So during the same time of us doing the proof of concept, I thought, well, let's see what else we can do, and can we roll some of these new products that are on our to-do list? Can we? How difficult would it be to roll some of these new products? And so in the same time frame of us migrating all of our Glue workloads to Ascend, we were able to build a HubSpot API integration straight into Ascend that allows us to pull all of our customer data out of HubSpot and then join that with the rest of our data so that we can then take attributes and properties from HubSpot and then overlay that across all the rest of our customer data so that our internal services team can then use that for reporting out and for serving our churches even better. So that was one piece we built. Another piece that's super pumped about, and I know our sales team is super pumped about, is our donor health pipeline. And so that didn't exist anywhere 6 weeks ago, and has been completely built out into Ascend. And so that's a piece that we are in the final stages of productionizing and beginning to roll out to our churches. And then we've got probably three or four other ones. Church Metrics is another integration that we've built. Church Metrics is a platform for churches to manage their attendance, and we've been able to build an integration solely within Ascend with Church Metrics. That any of our churches that are on the Church Metrics platform, we can spin that integration up, and that'll pull their attendance down, and then they can visualize all their attendance within our Church IQ platform. And then so we got some things like predictive models that we're working on that will all end up into Ascend, and then we'll have our predictive models pipelines that we'll build out into Ascend, and then just like donor health, we've got two other products coming out, which are group and volunteer health, which we'll be able to roll a lot faster than we ever thought before. So pretty exciting time.
Yeah, that is really amazing. And I know we're over time, but I think want to thank everyone for being here. If you have to jump, we definitely understand. But I think the next slide really drives home a lot of what you've been saying. And what is the outcome that you've experienced as a result of being able to modernize your data stack?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest thing is that um, we definitely have joy in our data platform,
That
and
is nice.
I mean, excited to do the work that's in front of us that is within the giftedness that we have within our team. And so honestly, that's truly number one. I enjoy getting into the Ascend platform from a data engineering standpoint every single day. And so that is huge number one. Two, being able to run our pipelines daily opposed from twice a week, and be able to have fresher data for our churches and not increase our overhead from a cost standpoint was massive. And then another big one is just the time it takes us to roll new features and new products. Um, it in the past, for example, if we took donor health in the past, for us to build and deploy donor health would have taken us months, and we were able to do that in days this time. And so those are just things that honestly, for now that we've gone through this process, it was a no-brainer. But I'm so glad that we took the time to make the switch and the move.
Yeah, and I think that's real. Is it does take an upfront investment to be able to modernize, but the return on that investment is so significant when you look at you're having almost a 99.6 reduction in code to maintain. That's amazing. Delivering new data products 13 times faster. Like that ROI is just really incredible to fathom. And then being able to update your data over three times more frequently and have that not impact your costs at all. It's just really incredible, I think, what you've been able to accomplish. And so I think encouraging for people to hear that like it's worth it to make that investment up front. There is a return on that investment
Big time.
because there's so much more that you can do when you're freed up from all of that grunt work that you were having to do
Yep.
before.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been we've gone over a little bit, but I feel like, Dustin, every time we talk, I feel like I could keep talking to you because your passion for what you do is really exciting. And the things that you're building are really incredible. And so thank you for sharing your experience with us. You can connect with Dustin on LinkedIn at this QR code. You can connect with our team at the bottom QR code. I will send these slides and the recording out later today. If you have questions that we didn't get around to answering, definitely feel free to send those in reply to that email. We'd love to connect with you. But Dustin, thank you for your time. Everyone for attending, thank you for your time. And we will see you all later.